Hi. So, since you're studying education and psychology, today I'm going to ask you about what you know about the topic based on your experiences working with kids so far. So, first of all, when did you know you wanted to pursue education?
Well, at first, when I applied to Syracuse, I applied into Newhouse because I thought I wanted to work in mass communications.
Okay.
But my mom has been drilling into my head my whole life that she thought I would be a really good special ed teacher.
Okay.
So after her telling me, finally my senior year, I decided to take on an internship out of my focus area in high school and do one in a special ed classroom, and I fell in love with it. And ever since then, there was no question that I was going to be in education.
And then, what is your goal kind of after college? Like, what do you want to do with your degree?
Well, when anyone ever asks me what I want to do when I get older, I say that I just want to help people because I really don't know exactly. I know that I want to help people who have a harder time helping themselves. So that means kids or the elderly or people with special needs, like even animals. Honestly,
Okay.
I just want to work in a field where I'm going to make a difference.
Okay. So my next question is about technology. Obviously, it's even here at Syracuse, like technology is like really integrated itself within the classroom. So what do you think, like things like online homework or iPads in class, how do you think they like affect the learning experience? Are they good? Are they bad?
Right.
Yeah.
It's hard to say just in terms of everyone, especially being in the School of Education at Syracuse. We are, from day one, everybody learns differently. So doing the online stuff works for me, but then there are some people that have to write it all down, which I do as well. And it's hard to say, but I do think it's really important because before the classroom was only fit for people who learned well writing or visually, but now people can do it interactively, which is really important.
Okay, so what do you think of standardized testing, like the SAT or ACT to get into college, or even for grad school applications, like the GREs? Do you think they're fair? Do you think they're necessary? Because a lot of schools are kind of saying that they don't really care about what grade you get on it, and now the SAT, I know, is trying to like remake their test and update it.
Yeah. We talk a lot about that in classes. Standardized testing is another thing. Like, you learn in your best environment, and some people don't perform well on tests.
Yeah.
Some people are better through art or have other talents. So unless there's a test catered to everybody's personal abilities, then it's really hard to say. For things like the SAT, someone like I didn't study for the SAT, and I went in, I took it once, and I did fine, and that's the score I used. And then I have a friend who took it 4 times and took an SAT class and struggled really a lot with it. And in my opinion, she's smarter than I am. She gets better grades in the classroom. It's just a standardized test. It's not for everybody to learn. So, and it's really stressful. It puts a lot of importance on IQ, kind of, and just knowledge that you might not use in the day-to-day. So putting pressure on people to cram that information just for a night isn't any test of their intelligence.
True. And then, so obviously studying education, you have to know a lot about learning disabilities. What do you think of Adderall or similar stimulants being prescribed to young school-age children? Because obviously in college you kind of know what your study habits are.
Yeah.
You're kind of, you know how you learn best, but what do you think about it when children are like 5 and the teacher says they're not paying attention in class, like, and the doctor says, yes, they have ADHD.
Right.
What do you think of prescribing them that young? Because sometimes they say, like, you have to kind of grow into your
No. That's
mind.
People say you'll grow out of it and you'll get less high-strung. But, I mean, from my personal experience, I've seen kids that could go either way. Kids that get older and they're a lot calmer. It was just because they were a kid. They were bored. They were really smart, so they would get their work done early, and they would be messing around with the other kids in the classroom, and they interpret that as ADHD, or they'll put ADHD on anything. And I'm not one of the people that is super against things like Adderall or Vyvanse or Ritalin. I would never say that, but there's definitely a time and a place for it, and it's largely a personal decision. I mean, I know people who went all through K through 12 that didn't take anything at all,
Yeah.
and they didn't start treating their ADHD until they came to college because it's a completely new environment.
Yeah.
And things change a lot. But for kids, I don't think, young kids, the kids that I typically work with, I don't know if it's the best. It kind of turns you into a zombie.
Yeah.
And when you're a kid, you're coming into yourself. You're learning so many new things. You don't want to be in an alternate state of mind when you're learning things that are going to stay with you forever.
Okay. And then, so, like, off the topic of that, what do you think of, like, college-age students kind of who don't need Adderall or Ritalin,
Right.
who don't have ADHD, but they still take those stimulants to try to do better in school, and it does put those who actually struggle with a learning disability at a disadvantage.
You're right.
Do you think that universities should somehow try to stop this, or like
monitor it or something?
Monitor it in any way? I mean,
it's hard to. It's so hard because obviously
it's a topic that's not like
people don't talk about it because,
but everyone knows,
right? Because taking Adderall runs rampant on college campuses. Like in the library during finals week, it's basically a drug house. Yeah. Because everybody is taking it. But speaking from somebody who has been prescribed it, it's hard. It's always hard to say, like, oh, well, you shouldn't be doing it because you don't know somebody's personal experience. Yeah. But if you're not prescribed, it can be dangerous.
Of course.
It's not smart, especially when you're not under your doctor's care, to be taking something that they haven't given you. And it's kind of wrong because those medications just heighten your abilities when you don't have a learning disability. And that puts you a step above everybody else. And although, like, you have to do what you have to do to get ahead, it's just not something you should be doing in a college environment, especially. You're paying for your education already, and why are you going to pay for additional things? Yeah. Save your money.
Makes sense. So do you think that students with learning disabilities should be put in classrooms with students with similar learning disabilities to them, or should they be integrated within the regular classroom? Now, this is kind of, I guess, about like grade school kids or people in high school, because obviously things change in college, but I'll get to that question later.
Speaking from experience, my senior year I worked with kids ages 16 to 21 in a special ed classroom, and it was all kids with severe learning disabilities. Some of them had physical disabilities as well. And
but they were all different. Each person was obviously unique.
Each person had a different disability. Grouping, something I would say no to immediately is grouping people based on their disability. Like, all of the kids with Down syndrome go here. Yeah. All of the kids with ADHD go here. That's because putting people that are not exactly the same, no person with disability is just like another person, but putting people together that have a very similar circumstance isn't going to help them to learn anything. Now, when I worked in that special ed classroom, all of the kids had different disabilities. So they were learning from each other and getting to know each other, and then the teachers got to learn so much more about them because they saw the differences. And putting a kid in a special ed classroom, just exclusively special education, that has special needs can be beneficial to them because they can still learn from other kids. But going off of that as well, putting somebody with special needs in a, I guess, air quotes, regular education classroom would teaches them a world of information that they wouldn't have access to in a special ed environment, because these kids are learning at an accelerated level. And who says that somebody that has a learning disability can excel or catch up to the kids that they're around? Because you're going to learn from who you're around. And I know that I worked in a classroom of 5-year-olds who, I think about half of them had learning disabilities and half of them were like normal learning abilities, I guess. And them all working together really lifted the spirits of the kids with learning disabilities, because they had been marginalized before and put in classrooms with kids just like them. And then later, when they saw that, oh, I can learn along this smart kid, or, oh, we're doing the same thing, we're reading the same book, maybe just in a different way, it makes them feel a lot better about themselves, and they can excel. But learning and having an education is all about learning in your least restrictive environment, your LRE, like they say it all the time. And whatever environment is going to be best for you is determined by experience. And it's hard to say unless you've done it.